r/AskReddit. Redditors who work in human resources. What red flags on a resume or cover letter will prevent a candidate from getting a call back? Serious. Big red flag. Stupid email names. Drinker6069, Hotbabamama, Awesome 420, Sexy Bumblebee 1995, Kickiness 1989 or Nativachik 42 are not emails you want to put in a resume to get a job. I see these types of emails every damn day. I try to tell people to create a professional email, like your name, but so many people don't listen, then wonder why they are passed over. Edit. In regards to email clients and email names, it doesn't matter what client you use, be it Hotmail, Mail, Yahoo, whatever. Most employers don't care what client you use, it's the username you choose that matters. You can use an alias, a word, or a phrase as your email name. Never said you couldn't. However, you have to ask yourself, do I want to be known as Lavestidance45? Your username is your online identity, so make it what you want to be known as. It can make just as big of an impression as your resume. If the employer sees Batman45, he's not going to take you as seriously. As for getting rid of the email you already have, don't. It's perfectly fine to have multiple emails, one for work and one for play. Personally, I have 5, 4 work related and 1 personal. One nice thing about clients, like Gmail, is you can link them all together, so you only need to actively check one of them to receive everything. Mail also allows you to respond as any of those linked emails, saving you time and bouncing between addresses. I don't know if other clients do this. I only use Gmail and my private sites myself. And finally, when it comes to how to use your real name as an email address, it doesn't matter. Any variation of first, middle, last is fine. Some use all 3, others only use 2. Some put first m last, others last m first, some middle last. It doesn't matter. It's your name. You're good to go however you choose to use it. Find a way that works for you. Close bracket. Edit #2. First of all, wow. So many questions. Thanks for all of them, and I hope my answers have been helping a little. Secondly, to address a few very common questions. In regards to numbers in emails, many people have been asking if numbers are okay. My answer is they can be. Try to avoid them if you can, but if you must use them, for example, your name is too common, use them wisely and avoid bad numbers 69, 420, 777, 13, numbers that may have double meanings. Using your birth year in your email name is acceptable, but just be aware that giving out your birth year may be used to discriminate. If someone sees 1998, they may think S/she's too young to work here, and on the flip side, if they see 1945, they may think S/she's too old to work here. Employers are not supposed to discriminate based on age, but sadly many do. This is why it is always frowned upon to give out your date of birth on your resume. Your email can be the same. So for using numbers, it's sort of an at your own discretion type of deal. If you want to, go for it. Just please don't use bad numbers. I'm sure this will get buried, but I'm an executive recruiter for a large engineering recruiting office. I look at around 300 plus resumes a day. Granted, most of the roles I fill are very round peg round hole types of positions. You have on average 30 seconds to get me excited about your resume. I'm a master of skimming for important details. Cover letters will never get read. Do not waste your time or ours. Please put any software, AutoCAD, WaterCAD, BIM, ECT, in a bulleted box at the top of your resume. This works with any type of position. Your skills need to be at the top. Put dates on your damn resume. If you have no dates, I will delete your resume. Work history is very important. If for whatever reason you do have a gap, write a quick sentence on why. I had a knee surgery as an example. Like others have mentioned, hobbies are not necessary. However, if you played sports or are an Eagle Scout, please put those down. This shows competition and drive. Do your homework on the company you are applying for and tailor your resume to this position. Read the job description, select keywords and build around job you are trying to get. Now, this next piece, CMOD. If you put your resume out on a site such as Monster or Career Builder, fill out every available option. The reason for this is I pay a lot of money to view these resumes. Upwards of $8-12 sign a resume. If all I see is your name with confidential, you are going to get skipped over. I can't afford to take a gamble and hope you are a fit. Lastly, use LinkedIn. It may seem like a crappy knockoff of Facebook, but it is hugely important with networking. If you see a position posted, you can go to LinkedIn, find the hiring manager, find the HR manager, or even higher ups. Send them a direct email. Show your interest. If anyone is interested, I have an interview prep guide I have spent the last 2 years reviving, and may have some great insight. Edit. I would like to add one last piece of advice which I forgot. This is also the most important piece. Closing. Is there anything else we should cover? Based on our time together, how do you see my fit into the organization? What's the next step? I'm very interested in the position. The key question though has to be using these precise words. Do you have any concerns about my candidacy for the position? Many interviewers will be totally honest when asked directly. The concerns verbiage is a bit of a shield that makes answering this question less confrontational, and the candidacy verbiage makes it clear that they are making no job offer commitment yet. If so, address these concerns right then and there to the hiring authority's satisfaction. You want the heart to say out loud, I have no concerns about your candidacy. Thank you/you/Cosmo for adding the link for me. Disclaimer: yes, I know my prep guide is full of spelling and formatting errors. This is a guide I use alongside with my candidates as a recruiter to offer insight into the interview process. I've been adding to this list for a long time. It is meant to be used as a general outline for an in-person interview. Please do not tear me apart after reading. My goal was to try and be non-traditional, humorous, and hopefully add information even seasoned candidates might forget. Alright, I've seen a few comments where people are complaining about having to spell correctly and following little things. Here's something you need to remember about the hiring process. I've dealt in hiring people in the past, though I'm not in ours specifically. Steve Jobs was an exception and not the rule. Referring to the original spot I posted this, but this has to do with how he showed up barefooted to interviews and such. The vast majority of people who don't take the time to spell check their resume have that sort of laziness come across in their work. I've seen people let through with this sort of thing before, and they, more often than not, end up being underperformers and come across poorly in communications with the client and others. So, while you're right that this isn't always the case, there is a huge job pool out there. I, personally, would rather bypass the resume with the chance that I may or may not have been right about the person than bother with giving them a chance. And, to be completely honest, I'm not going to know the difference either. I'll hire someone else next week who did spell check their resume, and there's a better chance of them doing a good job. Not to mention, once someone is hired, it's damn near impossible to get rid of them if they are not any good. You have to be able to prove, basically beyond a doubt, that they are a terrible employee. So if they are just skimming by and becoming kind of a waste of money, but aren't actually doing anything wrong, then you absolutely can't get rid of them for fear of legal ramifications, i.e., not worth the effort to hire a possibly bad candidate just to give them a chance. So, my point here is that, regardless of who you are, you don't have as much negotiation power as you think when coming into a job. You are one in a million, and if we aren't impressed by your resume, we can just find someone else. So, why not make yourself one of a kind by catching everyone's eye, rather than trying to bypass the basics? Especially in a professional environment. Minimum wage is different. I'd like to note, however, that this conversation may be different for certain skill sets. If you're interviewing for a VP or C-level personnel, then you may not be so one in a million, but I think this thread leans more on the working class employee. And I also don't think you're going to be at this level if you're spelling things incorrectly in front of the client. I used to work at a large investment bank, and they did most of their university recruiting by having employees in non-HR roles, myself included, visit their former campuses, hold information sessions about openings in their departments, and evaluate candidates who applied. We would at least skim the cover letters. Applicants from the same school often had similar resumes and qualifications, so it was a way to differentiate. The most common shortcoming was writing a generic "I want to be a banker" letter that was obviously designed to be sent to any bank after doing a find and replace on the firm's name. It really helps to include some content that's specific to the employer and about why you're a good fit at that specific company. In an entry-level recruiting situation, they know you're submitting applications to their competitors, so it's important to show that you put thought and effort into the specific firm/job opening. Similarly, since you're applying elsewhere, the likelihood that a candidate will accept is a factor when deciding who gets offers. I imagine this is also a concern for overqualified candidates who are considered a flight risk after starting the position. Because our internships and full-time rotational programs had a limited number of slots and we were one of the more desirable employers in the industry, we couldn't count on being turned down by a meaningful number of people. We only made as many offers as we had openings and kept 1 to 2 people in mind as alternates. We never had too many alternates because we didn't want to hire people who didn't make the initial cut. If everyone from a given school turned us down, then we moved on and the openings would be filled by candidates from another target school. We were pretty competitive internally about getting people from our own schools hired, so if a candidate had a perfect resume but seemed unenthusiastic in their cover letter and/or interviews, we'd usually pass them over in favor of someone who was more interested in us. This also makes networking, attending events and information sessions, and connecting with alumni crucial. I can't speak for other firms, but despite common perceptions of the industry, there was very little nepotism in our hiring process. Out of my own class of 40 interns, only one had a family member at the bank, and another was related to a high-profile executive at a different bank. Both of them were qualified enough to get the job on their own merit. Everyone had an equal shot at making connections within the bank and convincing recruiters of their own interest, so there was no excuse for not trying. Not in ours, but I've had to interview people before. I'm a software engineer, and these things got an immediate disapproval from me, to where you weren't even remotely considered for an on-site interview. The person lists a bunch of open source projects that they were involved in. I go and extensively check the commit log for any trace that they ever contributed to those projects, and found nothing. Immediate nope. If it was 1 or 2 projects, and there was no proof, I'd bring it up in the interview. But 9 of them, and you gave me a direct fucking link to the GitHub repo, but none of the commits in there belong to you? You're a liar. You put proficiency in Visual Studios. Yes, I'm sure you're very proficient in them. Your resume goes on for 5 pages listing all sorts of programming languages, design patterns, technologies, and various 3-letter acronyms. I ask you to explain your understanding of 2 of them over a phone interview, and you can't even tell me what the acronym stands for, much less what it means. If you don't know what XML is, or what the word stands for, don't put it on your resume. The description of your previous job was you programming software codes in Visual Basics. I can't even take that sort of a sentence seriously. You've cleared never worked a year in the industry. Stop it. And on the flip side, things that would take you to the top of the pile immediately. Your resume is small and basically says, hey, I'm new to the industry, but here's some stuff I've done before that I'm willing to demo to show you I care about what I do and hope to be doing if I get hired. A serious, passionate engineer can learn everything they need to know in 2 weeks from scratch. I'd rather work next to a serious, dedicated idiot with a desire to learn than an expert who doesn't care about the product. There are no spelling mistakes and thought went into the arrangement of the resume. If a person cares about the little details when typing up some stupid piece of paper about themselves, it's more likely they'll care about the little details when it's time to write some stupid piece of code. Nothing irrelevant is listed. If you're applying for a software development position, don't list that lemonade stand you set up in 5th grade. It hints at you being the type of person that only cares about appearances without caring about how things tick underneath. An engineer would ask, who is the interviewer? Who is going to be reading my resume? What can I do to make myself appear serious and capable? A fellow engineer would find it insulting that an applicant lists high school computer repair club or Stevie B's pizza driver when applying for a role at a software engineering firm. What about those things is even remotely similar to being a software engineer? I don't work in hours, but I do interview people fairly often for jobs at Microsoft. The tech world is a bit different when it comes to resumes, and it doesn't seem like anyone is focusing on what people are looking for in the tech industry, so I'll share my perspective. Things I don't care about. 1. Your work history. Work history means very little. Name any company that has over 100 workers that doesn't have an idiot among their ranks. You could very well be that idiot that somehow managed to swindle your way into a job. Work history can work negatively against you as well. If I see that you've been at company X for 10 years, I'll probably be worried that you're stale and have tunnel vision. New projects and new perspectives generally make for better devs/designers, so the same thing for over a decade makes me think you can't do anything else. 2. Your education. I've interviewed probably around 20 PhD postdocs in computer science who are looking for a programming job. Over half of them failed a basic programming test. They were all pure theory based in their education and had never really coded in their lives. Every school is different in their education. I personally went to 2 colleges. The first was immensely challenging, stimulating, and enlightening. I was there for 2 years and transferred to another school because I couldn't afford the first anymore. At the second school I was running tutoring sessions for the seniors in Camp C who were about to graduate. The differences in education between schools is staggering. 3. Awards, honors, recognitions. Unless it's a Nobel Prize or some other prize I've actually heard of, I don't care. When I was in school I won the Stanford Innovation Prize, something that's handed out to 2 students in each state each year. I did it by running a sham survey and making some rubber band balls. Prizes and awards rarely represent accomplishments, and even rarer still represent skill and talent. Things I do care about. 1. Personal projects. Want to show me that you're passionate about doing this type of work? Show me what you do outside of a paying job. Everyone claims they are passionate. The ones who do it when they won't be paid are the people who truly are. Are you a designer? Show me your design blog. Show me your whips. What's your sketchpad look like? Are you a coder? You sure as hell better have a GitHub account, and if you don't you better have a reason why. Acceptable reasons are you like to host your own Git repo or prefer some other source control. Unacceptable reasons are that you don't work on projects in your spare time. I've dealt in hiring people in the past, though I'm not in ours specifically. Steve Jobs was an exception and not the rule. The vast majority of people who don't take the time to spell check their resume have that sort of laziness come across in their work. I've seen people let through with this sort of thing before and they, more often than not, end up being underperformers and come across poorly in communications with the client and others. So, while you're right that this isn't always the case, there is a huge job pool out there. I, personally, would rather bypass the resume with the chance that I may or may not have been right about the person than bother with giving them a chance. And, to be completely honest, I'm not going to know the difference either. I'll hire someone else next week who did spell check their resume, and there's a better chance of them doing a good job. Not to mention, once someone is hired, it's damn near impossible to get rid of them if they are not any good. You have to be able to prove, basically beyond a doubt, that they are a terrible employee. So if they are just skimming by and becoming kind of a waste of money, but aren't actually doing anything wrong, then you absolutely can't get rid of them for fear of legal ramifications. So, my point here is that, regardless of who you are, you don't have as much negotiation power as you think when coming into a job. You are 1 in a million, and if we aren't impressed by your resume, we can just find someone else. So, why not make yourself one of a kind by catching everyone's eye, rather than trying to bypass the basics? Especially in a professional environment. Minimum wage is different. I'd like to note, however, that this conversation may be different for certain skill sets. If you're interviewing for a VP or C-level personnel, then you may not be so 1 in a million, but I think this thread leans more on the working class employee. Thank you so much for watching the whole video. Please leave a like and subscribe.